When I say Minotaur, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Probably something like this, right? A terrifying half-man, half-bull, the symbol of pure horror, lost deep inside an impossible maze. It's one of the most famous monsters ever, but what if the story we've all been told is completely backward?
You know the classic story. It's simple and it's definitely scary. King Minos of Crete takes off a god, and as punishment, his wife gives birth to this monstrous creature. So, to hide his shame, he builds the labyrinth to lock the beast away and starts feeding it human sacrifices. It's a textbook tale of divine punishment, right? A clear warning to us mortals. Don't you dare get too big for your britches.
But what if that whole interpretation is just wrong? What if the real story isn't about the monster stuck in the maze, but about the man who put him there? We're about to dive into a radical rethinking of this myth, one that completely flips the idea of good and evil on its head.
Okay, so first, let's make sure we're all on the same page with the traditional version. For centuries, this story of the Minotaur has been passed down as a cautionary tale. It's the story the elders, as our source calls them, would tell everyone about the terrible things that happen when you defy the will of the gods.
The moral is pretty straightforward. Don't cross the gods. If you do, your ambition, your pride, it's just going to create monsters. The story's job is to prop up a social order that's built on obedience, piety, and, let's be honest, fear of shaking things up. It's a lesson in playing by the rules.
But then, a totally different perspective crashes the party. It's captured perfectly in this quote from the philosopher Zarathustra. He just throws that old morality right out the window. He argues that the elders are telling you a story to keep you afraid, while he sees a story about unlocking your true potential. Let's see how he builds this case. In Zarathustra's worldview, this isn't a story about sin, not at all. It's a parable about power, about courage, and ultimately about the failure to live up to your own greatness. And he reimagines every single piece of the myth to prove his point.
This is where it gets really interesting. Remember the magnificent white bull that Poseidon sent? The old story says it was a test of Minos' obedience. Zarathustra says, no, it was a gift of raw, untamed Dionysian power. This wild, creative, primal energy. Poseidon, who he calls a spirit of envy, didn't demand the sacrifice out of piety. He demanded it to force Minos to make himself smaller. So Minos' decision to keep the bull, that was his first truly noble act of defiance.
And that brings us to the Minotaur. In this new telling, he isn't some abomination born from sin. He is the magnificent consequence of that noble defiance. He's not a creature of shame at all. The Minotaur is the master of his own dark world, a being of pure, unstoppable will who's thriving down there, far away from the judgments of society.
So here's the absolute crucial point. King Minos' real failure wasn't defying a god. It was his weakness afterward. He was half a Superman. He had the guts to seize power, but then he crumbled under what Zarathustra calls the common man's sickness, shame. So his real crime wasn't hubris, it was cowardice.
Which, of course, brings us to the labyrinth. If the Minotaur is this symbol of incredible, untamed power, then why would you build this ridiculously complicated prison to hide it? What is the maze really for?
Well, according to Zarathustra, the labyrinth isn't actually made of stone and mortar. It's a psychological prison. It represents that whole complex system of lies, of excuses, of moral codes that people, and even whole societies, build to avoid facing the powerful, chaotic, and, sometimes terrifying results of their own actions.
The king wasn't locking up a monster. He was locking up his own fear. The maze is a giant monument to his failure, a testament to his refusal to own the chaotic strength he had unleashed. It's his denial made physical. And here is the ultimate twist. The very structure that was built to contain the beast is what actually makes it stronger. The labyrinth becomes an extension of the monster's will. For the weak people who wander in, clinging to their old rules, it's just a confusing trap. But for the Minotaur, who navigates by pure instinct, it's the perfect hunting ground. So if King Minos failed the test so badly, what does it actually take to succeed? This brings us to the final, powerful lesson of the parable, the real test of a true hero, or what Zarathustra calls the overman, a person who has truly overcome their human limitations. This right here is the heart of it all. The greatest sin isn't creating a monster, whether that's a difficult project, a big ambition, or even a dark part of yourself. The real profound failure is the cowardice of refusing to own it, of building a labyrinth of denial around it instead of stepping up and mastering it. So the path of the true hero, the Overman, is crystal clear. First, you have to have the courage to defy all those voices telling you to stay small. Second, you have to embrace whatever comes next, the consequences, without an ounce of shame. And finally, you have to master the very maze of complexity and denial that your own actions created.
You know, the hero we remember from the old myth, Theseus, he just uses a simple thread to escape the maze. But for Zarathustra, that's a cheap victory. That's taking the easy way out. The true hero doesn't run from the darkness. They walk right into the heart of it and learn to command it. They become the master of the beast within.
And that leaves all of us with a final, really pointed question. Because this isn't just some ancient Greek myth, it's a parable about our own lives. It forces us to look in the mirror and ask, what are our monsters? What magnificent, chaotic potential have we unleashed, only to then try and hide it away because of fear and shame? And what intricate maze of denial have we built to avoid facing our own power?